What do you need as an entrepreneur? Like, what's essential for your toolbox?
Yeah.
I think we're getting to the point where there's so many creators and so many folks have been doing it so long and through several cycles that folks are able to kind of like consolidate and synthesize best practices.
Yeah.
And there aren't the same kind of barriers to get that kind of information from another peer. You know? So like something as simple as like, what should my rate be for this gig? Fearlessness, this has to be brought to the forefront because there's a moment where I remind myself, I cannot be the only person thinking this and experiencing it.
Yeah.
And I think the scariest place to be in is isolation.
Yeah. Welcome to Keys to the Culture podcast. It's your hostess with the mostest, Maisha, and this is a place where we celebrate creatives, entrepreneurs, and people who are making a name in the creator economy, one post at a time. So in other words, we're rooting for everybody Black. And today we have a special guest. This guest is someone new to me, but I'm so excited to interview her. But let me read a little bit about her before we get started. Autumn Breon is a multidisciplinary artist that uses a variety of media, installation, digital image making, collages, and performance. Breon investigates the visual vocabulary of liberation through a queer Black feminist lens. A graduate of Stanford University, yes. She studied aeronautics and astronautics and researched aeronautical astrobiology applications for NASA. She's a whole scientist, guys. Let's welcome Autumn Breon. Hey, girl.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming. That was a lot of big words, but I think I did well.
You did great.
I did great. Thank you. So before we get started, I have one question to ask you. When did you know that Black creativity was the culture?
Oh, as long as I have been a part of, admired, and known culture, I've known that Black creativity is the culture.
Yeah.
We're the foundation and the building blocks for so many things that are great and beautiful and that other folks want to commodify.
Ooh.
So as long as there has been culture, Black creativity has been what's created that culture.
Yes. And we are the blueprint. We are the temperature. We are the game changers. Anything we touch, it can change.
Yeah.
And we can create that tone. So for you, where did you grow up? Let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up and how was life growing up?
Yeah. I grew up here in LA, so I'm a native, born and raised, the few, the proud.
Okay.
Growing up was fantastic. I think LA is such a cool place to grow up, especially to take in so much like creativity and history. So I grew up going to lots of art museums and institutions and seeing performance art, seeing live music. That was a big part of how I grew up.
Yes.
And I think that really influenced how I see the world, like the lens that I get to use to take in everything around me.
I love that. You know what? For me, too, it's the same thing because I grew up, I was in music. And then I love going to museums. I was like one of the only girls like in my class that love going to museums.
Oh.
And LA culture is so different from a lot of different places. So how has LA culture impacted the way you view art and how do you interact with other people in different places around the world?
Yeah. I think what's unique about Los Angeles is that, and this can be such an overused word, how diverse it is, but not just culturally, also just like geographically, like the fact that you can go from beach to mountains to woods in a day, you know?
A fact.
Yeah, that's so special. And like the different types of like foods and people that live in so many neighborhoods that are really close to each other.
Yeah.
I didn't just spend time in one part of LA, and I'm so grateful that was important for my mom because I was able to like dabble around and see the different parts of this city and this county. So I think that's influenced me so that when I make art or when I'm visiting a different place, when I lived in different places, I always knew that you could find your community or communities.
Yes.
If you look hard enough.
If you look hard enough.
Yeah.
I like that because there's so many different cultures within the LA area. And like there's so many different foods. And that's such a luxury that we have.
Yeah.
That we can go anywhere, we can hear different music, you know, different clothing. And it kind of just engulfed into the LA pot.
Yeah.
All just come together as this big gumbo. And, you know, it just influenced everything that we do. So for you, what's really interesting is that you're a whole scientist.
Yeah.
Like, what was that journey like? And why was science that thing for you?
Yeah. I read A Wrinkle in Time when I was a kid. My grandmother took me to the library all the time. And I remember one of the books that we checked out one time was A Wrinkle in Time.
Beautiful.
I became obsessed with the whole series.
Oh my God.
And that's when I was like, oh my goodness, I have to be a scientist.
Yeah.
So science fiction definitely influenced what I did in real life. But yeah, after that, I knew that I wanted to do something where I got to learn about how things work, be able to like take those things apart, put it back together. And that happened to be through science for like my first career. But then when you're trained as an engineer, when you're trained to use the scientific method, you can use that for anything. So it's like my first medium happened to be through engineering, but now I just use that same kind of framework for art making.
That's amazing. Give us a breakdown, the scientific method.
Yeah. So the fact that you start with a hypothesis, so the fact that you just start with like your best guess and then try to prove that and make modifications as you need to. That applies to entrepreneurship. That applies to art. So like if I'm trying to figure out the best way to communicate an idea for a performance, or if I'm working on a sculpture and I got to find the right material to use. It always starts with some kind of hypothesis, and then you're testing and testing until you get what you need. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, I went through a whole phase of taking things apart too when I was a kid. I don't know why I didn't become a scientist, but I got into tech a little later, but it's such a great feeling for kids to be creative.
Absolutely.
And to be able to take something and see how it works and say, you know what, I can make this too. So how important it is for young Black and brown kids growing up to have kind of that understanding that you can do everything you can do if you just apply.
Exactly.
And just make a decision.
As we were talking about.
Yes.
Exactly.
So how is that for you? How do you think that should show up for the youth now?
Oh, I think youth, like that part of being a human being, that's the time when you should like try as many things as possible and like fail early. Yeah. You know, so you get it out of the way, and also so that you know you'll be okay if you mess up, if you don't do it perfectly. That's a fact. I think that's what childhood, what being young, that's what a big part of your life should be, I think.
Yeah.
Just experimenting.
Exactly. I agree. I feel like, I ain't gonna go too deep, but the school the school curriculum and how school is set up now is not the best place to be creative. Yeah. And I think there should be more programs for kids to be able to do that. But unfortunately, you know, most of the time in the inner city, those budgets are not there. Yeah. So we have to, you know, do our work to kind of make that a thing for our own people and make a decision.
Absolutely. And the village that I grew up with, like my family, my extended family, the folks that raised me, they did such a great job of making sure that I had that kind of like safety net, but also so that I could experiment. You know, it's a balance. So like, I did dance classes. I was a Girl Scout. I did all the science fairs and the math Olympics. But that's where I just got to like dabble in these different pots and experiment. I love that. I think that's so important to make an environment that's like conducive for creativity. Because as humans, we're all born creative. You know, there's no such thing as a creative person or not a creative person. We're all creative. Yes. You just need places to be able to demonstrate that creativity early on.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I have a friend that says she's not creative. I'm like, girl, yes, you are. You are very creative. Yeah. So for you, when it comes to art, like, how did you get into art? Was that always a part of your path?
You know, I didn't realize that it was always a part of my path, but it was. I just didn't always name it art. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So I always found some kind of creative outlet with whatever I was working on, even before I knew that I was an artist. But I started collecting art and going to a lot of art fairs and biennials and visiting galleries, especially when I was living in South Africa.
Wow.
It was so important for me. And there was a point in my life where I just wanted to figure out, okay, what are my absolute like must-haves and like what are my nice-to-haves? Like I literally did that exercise where I was writing it in my journal. And something that was essential for me was being surrounded by beautiful things.
I love that.
So I just had to pursue whatever it took for that to be a part of how I live my life every day. But I was really intentional about learning about the ecosystem of art, doing that through visiting these different places, engaging with different curators, artists, gallerists, just understanding how that ecosystem works. And then I started my own studio practice and I came back to LA, and my studio's in Inglewood.
We love it. Okay, where is it in Inglewood?
It's on La Brea.
Okay.
And it actually has a working nail and hair salon inside the studio, in addition to other artists that work there. So it says Salon 1120. We kept the name Salon 1120.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to come visit.
Yes,
sure.
come by.
So what was the journey in South Africa? How long did you stay there?
Yeah, I was there for a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, really, really special place to be. I think it's so special because I appreciated Los Angeles more when I was in South Africa, because it reminded me, Joburg specifically reminded me so much of LA.
Really?
That's what made me miss Los Angeles. I thought I would never live in LA again as an adult. I thought, I'll live here, grow up here and everything, go to school someplace else, and then visit family whenever I do. But that's when I missed Los Angeles.
Wow. So how was life there?
Colorful, very, very like metropolitan, always on the go. I made great friends there. I really enjoyed the food. I love being able to travel to different parts of the country and different parts of the continent.
I love that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about art a little bit, because there's so many different styles of art. Let's talk about your style of art. So what is that for you?
So I work with sculpture, performance, installation. I say that all of the objects that I make are meant to be relics from a planet called Planet Esoterica. And all of the performances are rituals and ceremonies that come from this planet. A lot of influence from sci-fi still comes up in my work.
I love it.
Yeah, Esoterica is meant to be where ancestors go instead of dying. They just transition and go to this other planet. It's a place that's full of color. It's a matriarchy. And every now and then, Esoterica will send messages to planet Earth with everything that we need to finish our journey on this planet. So sometimes that comes in the form of a sculpture. There's a sculpture I made that's called Protective Style, and it's a giant hair grease jar. Okay. And it's pink and black, like Luster's pink oil. The inside has velvet, and when you see the ingredients on the back of the jar, it has your grandmother's prayers, your ancestors' will, the sound of barrettes click-clacking, sunsets. Those are like meant to be the ingredients in like this metaphysical jar. And the idea is that when you use this grease for your protective style, it's not just like braids or cornrows, but that's actually what's been protecting us while we have to walk on this planet.
Oh my God, that is so amazing.
Thank you.
I would have never thought of that. That is so dope.
Yeah.
I feel like our ancestors talk to us all the time.
Absolutely. I know they do.
Psst, you, come here. Yes, you. Have you been struggling to stay consistent with your content? We've all been there. You told yourself you was gonna post about a year ago, but you have yet to post today. But don't worry, I got you covered. Introducing the Ultimate Content Calendar Blueprint. It is a guide that will show you how to stay consistent with your content for the next 30 days and beyond. It's filled with tips, tools, and ideas to help you take your content to the next level. And guess what? It's completely free. So don't wait, because it's gonna go out fast. So make sure you download the Content Calendar Blueprint today. When we going through some stuff and you get this like thought in your head and it's like, okay, baby, you're gonna be all right.
Yeah.
I really feel like they talk to us.
Absolutely.
And everything we do, and it shows up in our everyday lives. Oh Oh my God. Okay.
So Esoterica is just meant to be a reminder of what we already innately know about how we're protected and how folks that might not be like in the physical realm with us, how they still communicate with us and make sure that we have the strength that we need. It's just a reminder of what we already know.
And when you got into art, was it difficult transitioning from science to art?
I don't think it was difficult because I was so intentional about learning and just making it really evident and clear that my intention was to learn first.
Yeah.
And I still consider myself a student. You know, I'm learning all the time. And that's a part of what it means to be an entrepreneur as well. You know, like you're always just observing all that you can, making the best like decision that you can, making as informed as a decision as you can. But you're consistently learning if you're doing it right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's an everyday journey. It's a roller coaster, I tell people all the time. It really is. Like, we'll get into that in a minute, but I really want to ask, you know, what is your thoughts on the reimagination of Black contemporary art?
I think this is a really exciting time for contemporary art, especially for Black contemporary art. Yeah. We were talking about how everything that Black folks touch is going to be inevitably something that shifts paradigms and shifts cultures, just because our existence is so significant. Like the fact that we are still standing above ground, like that miracle.
Absolutely.
Inevitably what we make will be significant.
Yes.
So I think it's a really exciting time for contemporary art, and it's exciting to see what Black folks are making, what Black folks are curating, the histories that folks are telling through work, and also how folks are reimagining contemporary art as a system. I think that's really special.
Yeah, I agree. Because I look at art, and, you know, when you look out into the art world, I don't see us all the time. And I question what is going on. Like, I don't understand some of the stuff that other people are making, and I'm trying to comprehend it. I'm like, okay, what is this? Yeah. Now, where are the people that look like me? Yeah. You know, is there a whole community around?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We're here.
We're here?
Yeah.
Tell us more about that community. Are you in tune with that community?
Yeah. That community is so important for me with how I make art. I mean, even down to like, I just love having people around me, like in the studio too. That's why I love the kind of studio that I get to work from, because I'm really inspired by what other folks are doing and how other folks are interpreting. But some of the ways that I make community with other young Black artists, a fellowship that I just finished with the Crenshaw Dairy Mart was a fellowship for abolition and the advancement of the creative economy. Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't that so dope?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Talk about us, elaborate.
So there was a cohort of artists. All of us are from LA, 3 Black artists. Okay. And we got to work with each other, make art with each other for this year-long fellowship. And work with like incredible visiting artists and lecturers that would come during the fellowship. Yeah. Things like that are where I get to build community with other Black artists that are doing really incredible work in different mediums too sometimes. But I think that kind of like networking and like reaching across and learning from your contemporaries, that's so important, especially for art. Because if we're consistently learning, you also have to have the folks around you that are learning too.
Absolutely.
We can't work in a vacuum.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. It's a learning experience. I feel like, you know, if we look at the landscape of art, when we see people that are looking, that looks like us, and we look at their work, and we try to get a stronger understanding of what you're performing, like your performances. I watched your performances.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, this is so dope. And I understood it. And I love music. So it made sense to me. Yeah. So let's talk about your performances, and how did those ideas come about?
Ooh.
Worth the wait.
Yeah. So there's always some kind of element of call and response in the art that I make, and especially in the performances. Yeah. I don't imagine any kind of barrier between me as the performer and the audience. Like, we all gonna participate and make this together.
And that's how it's gonna go.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that's important for me. So Worth the Wait was a performance where I have this hotline. It's called the Esoterica Hotline. And 323 area code. It's an LA number.
Okay.
Even though it's Planet Esoterica. I put out these different prompts and like calls to action, and I invite folks to text or to call and leave a voicemail with the hotline. And for Worth the Wait, I asked Black women, what's a stereotype that you never asked for? And if you could just deposit it, get rid of it, like I'll take it.
Woo.
So people would leave me these voicemails, and there's so much intimacy in a voicemail, I think. It's like a confession, but it's also like you're talking to somebody. Like sometimes I've noticed when I listen to the voicemails, I catch myself wanting to talk back sometimes. You know? So that's like the call and response part. So I collected all of these stereotypes and I put them on these gold bricks that I made, and I destroy each one with a sledgehammer. And then I use the bits that are left over to exfoliate. And then I like purify myself in whatever body of water is near where I do the performance. So when I did it in Ghirardelli Square in San Francisco, that was a really, really special performance, that version of Worth the Wait. Ruth Asawa is this artist that I absolutely love. Her fountain is in the middle of Ghirardelli Square.
That's amazing.
So I was able to go into the fountain, and then I like clean myself with like all of the bits of like the rock that are left on me at the end of the performance.
That is so amazing. Like, as a Black woman, how was your journey in finding who you are?
Oh, that's perpetual. I'm always finding myself. I'm finding the different parts of myself and the different parts of me that grow and change. I was raised by Black women, so I knew from a very early age all the multitudes that we contain. I was able to see that in my grandmother and my mom and my aunts and my great-grandmother. So I think that's just like just being a perpetual student. I'm also a perpetual student in getting to know myself.
And you show that through your art.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's absolutely the goal. And I always start with Black women because the Combahee River Collective, their manifesto, Combahee River was one of the largest raids that Harriet Tubman ever led when she freed some of the most slaves ever. Because in addition to all the work that she did, she was a spy for the U.S. military. So this group of women came together over 100 years later and created the Combahee River Collective. And that was this collective of artists, organizers, writers, poets that were all Black women. And in their statement, they said, in a world in which Black women are free, inevitably, everyone else will benefit and be free as well, because the systems that would have to be dismantled would free everybody.
Absolutely.
When I read those words, you know those moments like when you read something and you hear something and you're like, this is the vocabulary for what I already knew to be true.
Absolutely.
That really stuck with me, and it's such a guiding light for the work that I create. And that's why I start with centering Black women, because if I'm imagining worlds and building frameworks in which we're free, everybody else is going to benefit. So when I can ask them, what stereotypes do we not need anymore? Or another question I asked once was, what would you do with 8 months of paid time? That was what I started off with for this performance, and a whole body of work. And that's because of pay inequity. We're paid about 63 cents on the dollar on average. So when you translate that into time, that means that we would have to work an extra 8 months into this year to earn what a white colleague did last year.
Woo!
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
So I immediately asked myself, damn, what would I do if and when I have this time back? What would I do with that time? And then when you think about a lifetime, all those years of pay inequity, like what could we have done with the time? So I asked other Black women the same thing. They were leaving their voicemails and sending the text messages. I wore all of their responses in my hair. And there's a whole procession. I'm carried by 4 white men. My band is leading in front of me, the Black Fist Brass Band, incredible 8-piece brass band. And then when I was set down, I invited people to come up and take a note from my hair, but they had to read another Black woman's words.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So then I
so
did
powerful.
Self-portraits, acting out what these Black women said they would do with their time, and I minted them using blockchain. I didn't know much about blockchain technology, but I knew there was a permanent ledger. So I did these self-portraits based on what people said they would do with their time. and I write every woman that inspired the self-portrait and as a co-creator. So then as the work sells and continues to sell even after I'm not on this planet anymore,
absolutely,
she'll continue to get some of the royalties from it.
So cool.
So it's a direct action against pay inequity.
I love that. Okay, we need more of that, guys. we got to think outside of the box because that's amazing.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. And, you know, I mean, I've went through corporate America myself. Mm-hmm. It was a journey. Pay was not there.
Yeah.
And they expect you to do everything.
Right. And get half the pay. Double the work and half the pay.
Half the pay. But, you know, it's really hard for Black women sometimes to speak up and to have a voice. So when you're listening to those voicemails, what was something that really stuck out to you from one of those women?
I think the fact that so many women said they would rest.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like I would finally take that vacation. Oh, wow. Or I would just sleep. Mm-hmm. Or I'd get a full 8 hours of sleep because I haven't in so long. Wow. Yeah. That really, it was such a reminder that the rest that we need, that's not a luxury. Yeah. Like that's something that's essential.
Yeah, it is.
And that shouldn't be something that we have to call in and say we would do if we had more time.
Yeah. A lot of women carry the weight on their shoulders.
Yeah.
Carry our families, our partners, our children. And it shows up in every part of our lives. And, you know, I've had these conversations with friends too. And, you know, they're tired. You know, and a lot of people are going through the entrepreneur journey. You did mention about entrepreneurship a bit earlier. So for you, how has entrepreneurship been for you? Has it been an up and down roller coaster as well?
Absolutely.
What is that journey look
Never
like
a dull moment. Sometimes I just want to sit still and let it coast a little bit instead of the roller coaster.
Right, same.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I grew up seeing entrepreneurs. My mom is an entrepreneur and a small business owner. Amazing. My grandparents owned a grocery store. Wow. So I always knew that somehow I was going to be an entrepreneur. You know, I didn't know exactly what it would be, but I think that's so great for kids to see growing up. It teaches you so much about work ethic, creativity, even math, like how you communicate with folks. I think it really started, I probably felt comfortable as an entrepreneur when I was a Girl Scout, selling Girl Scout cookies.
I love that.
Yeah, I was hustling, like pushing cookies in front of the grocery store, like at school, at church. But I got so confident and felt like I could talk to anybody. Yes. I was able to communicate with people. I think that was so special to have growing up, and so much of what I learned I still use now.
Yeah, same. Like, has it been any difficult moments where you were like, I don't know if this is for me?
Yeah.
How did you navigate through that?
When there are moments when I've questioned, like, am I on the right track? Honestly, when I decided, hey, I want to focus on my art full time, I think that, you know, what I thought I was going to do, that may not be my path. That scared the bejesus out of me because it wasn't according to the plan that I was supposed to stick to. But I always go to my mom, honestly, and like the folks that I love and that are around, like my village, the people that still support me. That's who I go to when I question myself, when I don't know if I'm on the right track. And I asked my mom, you know, should I do this? Like, do you think this is crazy? And she said, well, does it scare you? And I said, absolutely. And she said, okay, well, if you feel fear, that means you have to face it. You must do it.
Ooh, I love that.
And she's like, you have a backup. Like, you know what you'll do if it doesn't work out, but you have to at least try it.
Yeah, that's the same. My mom supported my journey because my journey has been up and down, y'all. It has been a roller coaster. But, you know, to be in the art space, like, what are some essential skills that people need to have, are they just free to just do?
I think the fantasy is that as creatives and artists, we're free to just do and just be. Right. But no, you know, you got to have your toolbox.
Come on now.
You got to have
Let's
your
talk
toolbox.
About those toolbox.
What's important? What was the question again?
So what is important? Some skill sets or things that they need to go into the art space and do well?
Yeah. We'll start by knowing your why. What are you showing up for? Why is it important to you? And make sure that whatever that intention is what you use for your decision making.
Yeah.
I think start there. But so some of the other things that you need to know, like pay your taxes.
Come on.
You know, like keep your books in order. When you can, and if you can, have a team around you.
Absolutely.
That's worth it. Like when you get to the point when you can like free yourself up from some of the things that are taking up time, and you have to do them.
Yeah.
But it may not bring you joy. You know that it's not your forte or whatever. Find someone who's really good at it. And that could be something as small as like somebody that builds out your website.
Yeah.
You know, like instead of trying to find like the workaround or whatever to do it yourself, if there's an expert that can do it well, prioritize that.
Absolutely.
I would say that for as many aspects of your business as possible. Like just make sure you find the folks that know how to do it well.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So as far as having a team, like how do you develop the right team to work with?
Yeah. You know, when I work with folks and I see something or I know that they have like a really special talent, and that could be like my band, for example. When you identify that somebody has a very specific talent, they're good at it and they enjoy doing it, and you work well with them, I just keep it going as long as I can. The photographer and videographer, for example, that documents all of my performances. I've worked with them for every single performance. And it's just because it gets to a point where it's not just like the talent that they have, but also when you get to a point where there's like a language that you have with somebody that's on your team, because it saves you so much time, you know? It's not just a matter of how well the collaborator does their job, but also just the efficiency of you being able to rely on them and know that you can execute whatever needs to get done. When you find that, stick with it and also foster it.
Yeah. Have you had any negative experiences with
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How did you navigate through that?
Honestly, going back to the why, what we talked about.
Yeah.
Like when you know what your intention is and what your non-negotiables are, you just use that as your rubric for decision making. So that might mean that the decision is, hey, you know, it doesn't make sense for us to continue with this working relationship the way it is. That's just the way it goes.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, like, you know, just looking at what you do, like, how do you monetize in the art space? Because I know that people, you create, but you want to make a living as well.
Yeah.
So how do you monetize in that space?
Yeah. So when artists are invited to perform at institutions, at galleries, that comes with an artist fee, with a contract. Also through selling work, through exhibitions, through shows.
Yeah.
That's where work is sold. Yeah.
So is it a very lucrative place?
It can be. It can be if you do it right and if you're smart about it.
I love that. And how do you use social media as a medium to kind of continue pushing out your work? Like, how do you use social media?
So that call and response element, that's always a part of my work.
Yeah.
Social media is one of the outlets that I use to collect responses for folks
Amazing.
That are a part of performances or like objects that I make or something like that. So we'll usually do like in-person kind of like posting and ads and things for people for example, like see the hotline on like a poster that might be at Sip and Sonder. They've had some of my posters up sometimes before. They're fantastic collaborators. I love the work that they do too. So in addition to the hotline, and posters that people see, people can interact with the work online and like share their responses.
So cool.
Yeah, the point is just to make it as easy as possible for the audience to engage in the call and response part of the work.
And it's a community because you have like a really strong community online. I was looking through your stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, I like this. Like the images are great.
Thank you.
There's an acting component to it. I love that. And I seen that you had a care machine.
Yeah.
And it's pink.
Yes. It's very pink.
Yes. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
The care machine.
The care machine is also meant to be from Planet Esoterica.
Okay.
I asked Black women if you could be reminded of care through objects and have whatever you need whenever you want it, what would you want to have? So those were things like candy, lip gloss, edge control, edge brushes, tampons, pads, condoms, abortion pills, books, all sorts of things.
Crazy.
Collected those responses. I retrofitted a vending machine, made it pink, it glows, and I programmed everything to be free.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So the care machine pops up in different places and folks can take what they need. The only rule is take what you need. And if you don't need anything, just take in the beauty.
Oh my God. Okay. Where have you taken this machine?
It's been in Washington, D.C. on the National Mall. It started in Inglewood at the Crenshaw Dairy Mart. And it was in Miami for Scope Art Fair.
Amazing.
Oh, not Scope. It was at Prism Art Fair during Art Basel in Miami, so in December.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Is it going to come out again? Is it going to make an appearance this year?
Yeah.
Okay, so I definitely need to come and take some
Yes. Come to the care machine.
I love that. And I would love to connect you with some amazing women that I know are doing amazing work.
Yes, please.
All the time.
Yes, please.
How do you see the creator economy evolving?
Oh. I think that we have gotten to a point where folks are sharing best practices with each other frequently. And they're channels for folks to be able to do so. Yeah. So like what we were talking about, like what do you need as an entrepreneur? Like what's essential for your toolbox? Yeah. I think we're getting to the point where there's so many creators and so many folks have been doing it so long and through several cycles that folks are able to kind of like consolidate and synthesize best practices. And there aren't the same kind of barriers to get that kind of information from another peer. You know? So like something as simple as like, what should my rate be for this gig? Yeah. That's easier to talk about and do research for from other folks that are like working in the same kind of industry. Yes. You know what I mean? Yes. I also think that the tools that folks are able to use just from like the internet being so ubiquitous and like access to like Wi-Fi and things like that. Yes. That eliminates a lot of barriers that people have had within the creator economy before. You know what I mean? Like the fact that you can get like a Canva account or that you can have like a POS that's attached to your phone so somebody can just like, you know, swipe or scan a QR code to pay for something. That wasn't a reality 15 years ago.
Oh, no, it wasn't.
Yeah?
Yeah, things have become more convenient for us over the last 20 years or so. And for me, I feel like tech is really going to be at the forefront of everything that we do. And, you know, Black and brown people need to get into that space. Yeah. And how do you see that showing up over the next couple of years? Because you mentioned, you know, they have like the Bitcoins, they have cryptocurrency, they have you know, different ways that you can sell your art online. AI is phenomenal. Yeah. And that's getting into the art space.
Oh, too. Absolutely.
So how do you see that kind of changing the scope of things? Like this technology.
I think technology is just going to be another essential tool. It already is, but I think like even more so in like kind of like the sub-threads from technology. Those are going to be essential within all of our toolboxes even more than they are now. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I feel like it's a way to help build that generational wealth that we talk about so much and really see the benefits of that, the fruits of our labor. Because we've been doing a lot of stuff just free forever. And everyone takes a bit of that and they're monetizing it. And, you know, and we're putting things out into the world. And even with social media now, we're able to create generational wealth. There's, you know, amazing people making millions of dollars from social media. Yeah. So have you monetized from social media as well?
I have with some of the collaborations that I've done. And also, because it's such an important part of my practice, it's something that I just factor in as like essential for the steps that I'm going to take for any kind of project or any kind of piece that I start on. Like I know that I'm using that as one of my tools.
Yeah, I can see that. And like even with the work that you've done, campaign work, do you partner with brands and people who kind of align with your mission? Like how important is that for you? That's
the most important. That's the priority. Yeah. Like again, that's where the conversation has to start.
Yeah.
Like, but before we even start to understand like what we can do with each other, there has to be alignment in what we're making, or else it won't be authentic. You know, like if the missions and values don't align, it just doesn't make sense on either side, really. You know, that's not even just for me. Like, because if I'm working with someone, I want to make sure that both parties can walk away satisfied. And if there isn't alignment, you know, it just doesn't make that much sense for me.
And do you feel like you have a lot of courage being artists and speaking about things that most people may not even address, or we talk amongst ourselves in our living rooms?
Making the private public.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess it is courage. I had never, I don't name it that on my own because it just feels like something that I have to do, something that I have to talk about. You know, those ideas that just keep you up at night, or you can't stop talking about it.
Yeah.
If I feel that way about something, that's when I know I need to make something around it. It's just kind of like completing the life cycle of whatever that thought is. Yeah. Whatever that concept is. So I had never named it as courage. It just feels like something that I have to do.
I love that. And for you, you know, what's next?
Well, the Care Machine is traveling.
Come on, Care Machine.
I'm really excited about the Care Machine traveling this year.
Too.
Yes, you have to come by. Come by the studio, or come by the next time the Care Machine pops up, so you can take whatever essentials that you need.
Will do.
One of my favorite, I guess it was a piece of feedback, but someone used the Care Machine and they got some gummy bears. And then she came to me afterwards and she said, "Thank you so much. I just started my period and I love having gummy bears when I'm on my period."
Oh my God.
So like providing those types of like essentials with the reminder that, hey, all of this should be free and it should be easy to access. It should be just as easy to figure out how to get abortion pills by mail as it is to go to the beauty supply and get some edge control when you need it.
Come on.
Those should be just as simple. Everybody should have access to pads and tampons and Diva cups and whatever they need. So it might feel like a big deal, but it shouldn't.
Right.
That's the big idea.
And you know, I feel like there's a lot of policing women bodies.
Yes.
So
they love to.
Let's get into that. And what is your views on that?
I don't like any kind of police, so especially if it's my body being policed.
Right. I feel like it's just as women, you know, the decision makers for medication, they don't look like us.
No, they aren't women.
They aren't women. And they don't understand our bodies, and they don't understand what we go through as women. Birth alone is life or death.
Literally, especially for us.
Yes. And
it can be a death sentence.
Come on, health equity.
Yeah.
For Black women. I'm working on a project now with the organization. I'm not going to name the organization, but we're working on talking about health equity for Black women and other women of color. And
we need to talk about that, please.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I'm looking, and when I have these conversations with these organizations, the people on the board don't look like us.
Yeah.
They don't understand the language. They don't know how to talk to us. And as Black women, we go into these institutions and we're looking for assistance. Health-wise, we are left dead in the water, and we need more women, especially Black women, in our corners and rooting for us and defending us as well. So have you had, you know, those conversations, those tough conversations about that?
I think those are the kind of conversations that I have like within my living room or, you know, with like my mom or family members or friends. And the types of conversations where I just feel like, whether it's courage, whether it's fearlessness, this has to be brought to the forefront, because there's a moment where I remind myself, I cannot be the only person thinking this and experiencing it. Yeah. And I think the scariest place to be in is isolation.
Yes. I'm so glad you said that.
Because that's when you aren't making logical decisions, you know, or informed decisions. And that's why, like, the virtual community, the community that gets to show up and take up space when there's an opening for an exhibition that I'm working on or a performance that I do. Yeah. It's like, how do we harness this energy when we are all of the same accord, right? Like, what can we do with that energy that we're conjuring so that we can live longer, happier, healthier lives?
Yeah, like a covenant.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And, you know, even for my health journey, I've spoke about this before. I have PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it's hormonal. I literally had to diagnose myself. I went to the doctor, had all these tests. They don't know what's wrong with you. I've went to specialists, and I did it for years. And I said, you know what? Let me research myself and start asking questions, and found out I had PCOS. Found a whole group of women on Facebook who have the same thing. Wow. And they started telling me, oh, no, you need to take this blood test.
Of course.
We need those communities and how important it is. And I love through art, we can showcase that as well and speak truth to power.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm so glad that you found the community that you needed, the care that you needed, but it should not have required that level of self-advocacy because everybody doesn't do that.
They don't.
You know, like how many of us have gone to a doctor's appointment? You're nervous to be there.
Yeah.
If you can even like have the time to show up.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Find a doctor, whether you use ZocDoc or whatever, that like takes your insurance, blah, 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 whatever. Once you're there, when you're like under fluorescent lights, probably like sitting in like a gown, you can feel really lonely.
Yeah.
And how are you going to remember to ask all the questions that you should ask? Advocate when you need to. You know, there are just so many barriers that shouldn't exist.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like we have those barriers in so many different parts of our lives. Look, you talked about pay equity.
Yeah.
Black women are not getting paid that much. Then we look at the scope of if you're in corporate America and you speak up, then
there are consequences. Exactly.
I've experienced that big time.
Of course.
That's why entrepreneurship was always for me. I just can't.
That was the route for you.
I knew it very young. And I want to segue. I want to ask you about that too. Have art always been, entrepreneurship always been a part of your journey? Was that something that you always wanted? Yeah.
Definitely.
Why?
I think because I saw so many entrepreneurs when I was growing up.
Yeah.
It just felt, I saw what the day-to-day of that kind of lifestyle, what it looked like, what it felt like.
Yeah.
And I felt really at home there. So I just knew, hey, at some point in my life, this is going to be my reality. Yeah. Again, I didn't know necessarily like what the specifics would be, how I was going to do it or what my business would be. But I knew that somehow that's where I was going to end up.
Yeah, same for me. I knew that I was going to be a businesswoman.
Yeah.
Very young. Yeah. Because you know that word didn't show up until later on. Entrepreneurship was not a word yet.
Yeah.
So it was a businesswoman.
Small business owner. Right. Businesswoman. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I figured it out, as I, got older. But, a lot of women navigating corporate America, trying to figure out how can I root for myself? How can I do the things I love and live a balanced life? And entrepreneurship has been that for a lot of women, especially during the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, again, as long as we've been here, we have been fine. We didn't always call it entrepreneurship, but Black women have been doing this.
This is correct.
A lot of it out of necessity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like even during the pandemic, entrepreneurship have skyrocketed, but also mental health.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like how have you went through that journey of kind of just making sure you're okay, doing self-checks?
I have to. Yeah. I have to. It's as important as my physical health. Like it's a part of how I show up as a full person.
Yeah.
And especially as entrepreneurs, as artists, like my body is my medium for a lot of my work. Yeah. So if I have like a knee that's bothering me, right? I can't show up the way that I need to. I can't fully execute what I'm supposed to be working on.
That's correct.
It's the same way if I don't feel whole spiritually or emotionally. So I assign the same importance to all of those. And all of us have to. As human beings, that's important. But I think that my line of work has prioritized it even more so for me because I know what the impact will be if I don't prioritize my wellness.
Do you feel that provides balance?
I'm always seeking balance. I don't always do a great job of it, but that's what I'm always seeking, perpetually.
Yeah. I love that. That's so great. You're awesome. I think you're extremely talented.
Thank you.
And I think, there's so much more that's in store for you. I think this is just the beginning for you. And I feel like you can connect with a lot of amazing people, especially women. I can see that. And I definitely want to connect with you outside of here. So what is some advice you would give young people who want to take the journey into art as an entrepreneur, as a medium to create?
Ask as many questions as you can and find places where you can learn and where you can experiment. Do that early, do it frequently.
Yeah.
And find your tribe.
Find your tribe.
Find your village of people. That's so important because you aren't going to do it alone.
Okay, another question. How do you find your tribe?
You just got to get out and take up space.
Take up space?
Yeah, unapologetically. And you know, that's just like if an exhibition that you've like read about, heard about, seems interesting and you think that you might not know anybody there or you don't know the artist, still show up. Because there's something that you can learn any place that you show up. Just figure out what that is when you go somewhere. I think that's a part of taking up space. It's finding the place where you can learn so that you can receive that.
Taking up space. Take up space, you guys. So where can everyone find you online, your website, your everything?
Yeah, everything is Autumn Breon, my name, AutumnBreon, autumnbreon.com is my website, and my Instagram and TikTok are Autumn Breon.
Come on now. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today on Keys to the Culture Podcast. So follow us at Keys to the Culture Podcast on all platforms. If you want to follow me, because you like me, at I am Maisha. Until next time, we'll see you soon.